Hello, my name is Sylwia Stefaniak, and during the 37th IBIMA conference, me and my friend Halszka Stuszek-Borowska, we are going to present the process of implementing public policies by example of policy of the development of artificial intelligence in Poland from 2020. Our article, which is presented during the IBIMA conference, is an introduction to the work for a PhD, which is an implementation doctorate devoted to artificial intelligence. Implementation PhD is characterized by the realization and implementation of a scientific solution in a commercial environment, which will characterize the methodology of work adopted by us. In the case of discussed research work, we are dealing with the implementation of the public policy for the development of artificial intelligence in Poland from 2020 through the modeling and implementation of program activities supporting the implementation of new technologies in the sector of small and medium-sized enterprises, along with their cycle monitoring and validation. The methodology of the work assumes that this implementation will take place through the collection and creation of a set of good practices that will support and facilitate small and medium-sized enterprises in implementing solutions based on artificial intelligence, as well as their popularization in this group, which will the implementation gap and the research gap. To this end, this solution will be implemented by us at the Chancellor of the Prime Minister in Poland. Our article is the third stage of this work, for example, to determine how the published AI policy addresses the objectivities of SME and how further work in this area should be planned. The next stages will be to deal with the combination of commercial solutions with the activities of public administration, which may at some point be a limitation for the full implementation of these research results. The policy of development of artificial intelligence in Poland from 2020 sets out a number of activities that Poland should undertake, as well as objectives that the country should achieve in the short term until 2023, medium term until 2027, and long term after 2027 to foster the growth of Polish society, Polish economy, and science in the field of artificial intelligence, or AI for short. All listed objectives and tools are divided into 6 areas: AI and society, AI and innovative companies, AI and science, AI and education, AI and international cooperation, AI and the public sector. The overreaching aim of the AI policy is to support the society, companies, representatives, and the academia and public administration taking advantage of opportunities related to AI development, while ensuring the protection of human dignity and conditions for fair competition in this global race. The AI policy takes into account the international legal, ethical, technical, and organizational standards which shape the requirements and conditions to reap the benefits of using AI throughout its life cycle, which encompasses design, research, development, deployment, application, use, and disposal. Public policies are a mechanism that intervenes in a certain state of affairs at a given point in the time after it has been determined that this state of affairs is unsatisfactory for citizens, or at a point in time when failure to respond may have an unsatisfactory effect on the particular situation in which they find themselves. However, many public policy theories indicate that this type of intervention should be introduced only when other mechanisms prove ineffective. Top-down actions should be launched when problems are unsolvable based on the involvement of individuals, groups of citizens, or through market exchange mechanisms. Actions from the level of public administration are advisable only when the market needs a specific intervention and the formation of economic conditions, for example, through the introduction of regulation or standardization, which define the principles of safety and manufactured goods, their distribution or provision of some services. As I have already indicated, public policy focuses on responding to the problems of social life. In the general scheme proposed by Scharfenberg, it looks as follows. However, before proceeding to the choice of public policy as a problem-solving mechanism, the first two steps have to be followed. For example, the identification of the problem and the development of an optimal solution. When identifying the problem, it is necessary to set an agenda in which we assume that the problem is to be solved, what we want to achieve, at what time, in what way, and who should be involved in solving it. In theory, the decision to apply a particular policy solution should be based on the market analysis. In practice, however, it is either the result of discussions and compromises of decision makers or a decision that has been made top down. In the case of AI policy, it was a decision of the European Commission, which, after conducting economic analysis, obliged member states to develop such document. Therefore, it is not surprising that the creation of programs and policies is not only based on social needs, but also stems from the vision of international groups and a particular political party, or more or less concentrate vision of public administration. Apart from the stages of the public policy cycle proposed by Dominika Kozachka and developed in her book Designing Public Policies, the cycle of designing and implementing public policies by Swanson and Bedwell also attracted my attention. In the one can notice a more strongly emphasized cyclicality of activities both at the stage of creating the mechanism and its implementation. What is particularly important for me is that it is also includes information and staff training, which in public administration is quite important. In the case of public administration, it should be remembered that due to salary differences between the private and public sector, there are a lot of problems related to employing people with inadequate skills for the task commissioned. The variety of subjects the employees deal with, the lack of adequate knowledge, the lack of specialized employees in a given subject, or the lack of the employees from a given field. And in the case of artificial intelligence, this is particularly evident. We cannot delude ourselves that people who have been working in the administration for more than 10 years, for example, will be up to date with technical innovations in these subjects and in this area. And it should be remembered that apart from the technology, this knowledge should be constantly supplemented with the market, its influence on the shaping of policies, good practices, etc. The next element is the implementation of public policies, is to determine which actors should be involved in the process and in which stages that should be activated. A very good way to visualize which actors influence the creation of public policies and the implementation of their phases, also in network form, is the diagram proposed by Kenneth Mouton in Influencing Social Policy. In addition to executive, legislature, and judiciary, we can see the media, including the internet, universities and think tanks, advocacy and intermediary organizations, citizens, and the systems, programmers, and organizations to which policy making must be aligned. What is not found in the theoretical issues described in the literature, or what is usually analyzed in these types of processes, are the contextual factors and social forces that counterintuitively have a huge impact on any action and may be overlooked in current work and planning. AI policy in Poland has also been discussed many times in the forum. Firstly, it should be noted that the basic of the document, for example, the assumption of the AI strategy in Poland, was developed by the Working Group on Artificial Intelligence operating at the Ministry of Digitalization since 2018. This group consisted of representatives of science, business, social organizations, and administrations. The document developed by them was the basis for work on the first version of AI policy. Afterwards, additional consultation work was undertaken by the Ministry of Development, which in January 2019 organized a workshop conference which was attended by stakeholders from all circles as the event was open to any group of participants. These discussions and many more resulted in another version of the draft of AI policy, which, after taking into account the interest of all groups, was sent to official formal work. The information discussed about which actors should be taken into account when implementing public policies is also evident in the plans for stakeholders implementing AI policy in Poland. The document describes the so-called AI ecosystem, which is a kind of organism for the realization of the policy. The diagram shown on the presentation indicates that the implementation of the document will involve interpreters, representatives of the science and research, representatives of education and teaching, the public sector, and recipients and customers of AI-related solutions. This is related to the way of the document is organized and it is subsequent accounting and implementation. Central on the chart is the minister responsible for informatization in Poland, who is to be responsible for coordinating the implementation of the document. His activities will be supported by AI Policy Task Force, AI Contact Point, AI Observatory of the Labor Market, Observatory for International Artificial Intelligence and Digital Transformation Policy, AI Council, AI Legislative Team, and of course all the teams you can find described in our article. It's worth to mention that society, the commercial sector, schools and universities, not governmental institutions, and all other participants in public life will set the direction of artificial intelligence development on a daily basis by their actions. The role of the public institutions, in turn, is to support them in this development. It's worth to remember that society, the commercial sector, schools, university, non-governmental institutions and all other participants in public life will set the direction of artificial intelligence development on a daily basis by their actions. The role of public institutions is to support them in this development. It's worth to remember, however, that these activities are to relate to each other of the social and economic groups in different way. The above information is aimed to developing theoretical grounds for further considerations on the practical implementation of the assumptions contained in the AI policy, with a focus on the sector of small and medium-sized enterprises. The policy document, as we have already mentioned, doesn't contain precise descriptions of the market processes to be directly implemented. Therefore, it is important to identify the needs of the SME sector in a way that allows to appropriate bottom-up actions to support the practical aspects of its functioning. The above analyses are intended to help to understand the theory basis for policy making, how to implement policies, how to select stakeholders and actors, and how to reach the identified target group. AI policy contain a well-described ecosystem into which these activities need to be implemented, started and validated in a cycle manner. Our professional work and the fact that I am the member team developing both the document and the subsequent market activities should allow me to carefully analyze and implement the actions set before us. Of course, if you want to see more and read more, please look into our article. Thank you.